Well, hello, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is James Baldini. I'm so glad that you're here. Didn't do the opening, but I'm going to do that right now. So, here.
Rise and shine! I got hairy legs.
Sometimes the words don't come out of your mouth the right way.
They know. They know. And they know I know.
There comes a time in every friendship when you have to say, I never liked you, get lost.
Thanks for the advice.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Me, I always tell the truth, even when I lie.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent.
Here we go.
First thing is I want to see us export more jobs.
And the way you treat other people are horrible.
It's the fly in the ointment, Hans. The monkey in the wrench. The pain in the ass.
If I were the man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place.
You kidding me?
Let's have an equipment check. Weapon? Let's keep it simple. You got your boots on, you can walk into combat. Let's go.
He won't sell anybody out to buy his future.
Say what?
I show you on order.
All of you relax. This is a matter of inconvenient timing, that's all.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Baldini. I apologize for the rough opening. Technical difficulties. I want to assure you, though, that everything is working fine now. And for those of you who are curious, and I know there are some of you out there that are, our ballisticpatriot.com website is now streaming live right now. If you wanted to watch it on there now, you could go to there and be able to watch the show from there. So tonight's topics, we have a handful of topics, but we're going to be talking about mail-in ballots. That's going to be the second thing we talk about. I have an update, by the way, from Belmar. I want to mention that. We also have a discussion about Michelle Obama's opening act at the DNC last night. I want to mention that. And we're going to close up with talking about who is it that's voting for Trump. I mean, this is a big question, and I found the answer. I mean, I knew the answer, but I found the Democrats' answer to who is voting for Trump. And I'm sure you're not going to be surprised, but maybe you will. Certainly, this is information that we can share with the rest of the world because this is good stuff for us to talk about. So right now, before I go into anything, I wanted to give you an update on Belmar's fresh update. I am going to read a post from Frank Trombetti, who's one of the owners of the Belmar Gym. For those of you who aren't aware of this, we've been following at Ballistic Patriot. We've been following the Attilis Gym in Belmar, New Jersey, and their fight to stay open under the coronavirus pandemic of Murphy's, where he's trying to keep us closed for a number of reasons, and he's saying that gyms are not able to be able to have people in because they're unsafe, despite the fact that he's never talked to these gentlemen, despite the fact that he's completely ignored every outreach to them, and despite the fact that these gentlemen have invested a large amount of money to ensuring their customers' health and well-being, and despite over having 15,000 visitors in and out, or people coming in, leaving, and maybe coming back the next day to work out in the last 2 months or 3 months, despite having 15,000 people come through, they have not had one reported case. That's pretty damn amazing. Not really, though, considering the lengths that they've gone to keep people safe there. So I would read this for you. Guys, the shit has finally hit the fan. Judge Robert Lowry has ruled in favor of the state. $15,497.76 per day, $46,493.28 for ongoing violation of litigants' rights, and $10,481 for their counsel fees. So due now is over $134,000. This is more examples of abuse of government. We can talk all day about about the ideologies and people's belief systems, and whether we should be following coronavirus or not, whether we're wearing masks or not wearing masks. But this is a blatant abuse of their position. This is a blatant abuse of the governor's situation and control. This is as bad, almost as bad, the abuse, because abuse is bad no matter where it is. But you have abuse from clowns in, I think it's Wisconsin, or maybe it's over in Washington or Portland, probably on the left coast, who want to try people for murder if they're walking around without a mask. These guys have a whole system in place, and the governor has yet to show them the science, and yet to share the science that he's making his decisions on. And that's something important, because the man goes around saying science and data, science and data. He shows us data of different things, and he's not the only one. There's other ones. This is a national program, so we try to talk about this in a larger context. Clown Murphy is not the only one doing this. This is something that we've seen across the boards for a number of states like Pennsylvania, and we see it in New York with Cuomo, and a whole bunch of handful of others, Michigan, to name a few. So, ladies and gentlemen, going forward, we're going to be talking about the rest of the agenda I said today. But this is one more thing about Belmar. They're calling for a continual presence down there of people who are willing to protest because they're going to put a barrier up and lock them in. So we're looking for people. If you want to go down there and protest, please do. I know at least one person is coming from out of state to do that. So moving on, I want to talk about, by the way, share. Please like this, share this with your friends, get them to watch. Let's have some dialogue on this type of thing. We need to stand up for our country. And ladies and gentlemen, if we don't do it, no one else will. So first thing on the list, we're going to talk about mail-in balloting. So the first video we're going to watch is CNN. I know it's oppositional research, so just please pay attention. We have someone who's blatantly, actually, before we talk about that, I do want to talk about why is there such a complaint about mail-in ballots. I mean, we know that it's easy to harvest them and destroy them if they're for the wrong party. It's easy to see who to reproduce them and fake ballots. It really is. I mean, it's something you can print in a decent printer, and it's something that you can then try to sell off. Or the important thing is to overwhelm the system. Now, you can overwhelm the system, and this is really the root of the Democrat plan, I think. They want to overwhelm the system. They want to make it so that the system can't handle it. This is not about talking about President Trump's overhaul of the United States Post Office. That's going to come in a few minutes. This is about the Democrat plan to put Biden in place. They know they're going to lose. They know they got a loser. They know they got a loser ticket. They have an option to defeat Trump, though. And this is actually a historical precedent. It's been done. And I talked about this in the show with my brother at the Brotherhood of Liberty, which we do on Sunday night at 9:15 p.m. You should check it out. But this is a Democratic plan to disrupt the election and to put Biden in power, and thus Commie Kamala after he drops out. So the plan is this: overwhelm the system, somehow break the system. We know just here in New Jersey, as an example, the ballot reading machines were flunky, flaky. This is not about the workers. This is about the machines themselves, the process involved, the requirement for so many people to be using it, to be involved in the system. So many areas where things can break down. They have increased the places where things can be corrupted. They have increased the places where things can be broken or disruptive, and created a system in which it's easy for it to fail or be overwhelmed. There's also the overwhelm. Now, this is the cloud and Piven model that we discussed also last week. The cloud and Piven is you overwhelm the system and you break it. So they're trying to overwhelm the system. And quite frankly, it's very easy to do. If you have a small county, which is, maybe only handles 50,000 or maybe even 100,000 votes per year. Now, all of a sudden, you can overwhelm it with 200,000, 150,000. They're not planning on having that many. They're only planning on X number. And so you drive that in to it, you're going to damage the system, break it. Why do they want to do that? Well, it's a reason. Because on I think it's December 15th, we have to have, there's the congressional electors, the people who are the electors for each state, vote on the president. So all the paperwork, all the counting, all the numbers, all the decisions, all the court cases have to be done by December 15th. Now, if they do this right now, I think it's about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 states, 7 maybe, that have decided they're doing just mail-in voting. And if you do the numbers, it's over 100 electoral votes. Now, if they can call into question 100 electoral votes from different areas, from different parts of the country, if they can do that, if they can force states that like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, which we know are the thin blue wall, or even other, like Ohio or Florida, if they can force those states into mail-in ballots and then do what I just described, you're going where they overwhelm the system and break it, and they force the system to go to be able to say, we can't fully certify our elections by such and such a date. Well, what's going to happen to it? What happens when there is not enough electoral votes, where neither candidate gets a majority of the votes? Anybody out there know? Well, I'll tell you what the answer is. The answer is it goes to the House. So the House then decides who's going to be the next president. And they don't have to vote the way their state wanted them to vote. They then vote according to their belief system. This happened in 1876 when 3 states bailed or had a contentious fight over 3 different states, over the Republican side, Democrat side, and what it ended up happening was it went to the House, and as a saving measure, then President Grant said to them, "Well, let's cut a deal." So they cut a deal, and they ended up pulling troops out of the South, and by doing so, they gave the election to Hayes. The Democrats, weren't going to do a filibuster. This is the deepness of this fight. They want to overwhelm the system. Don't think I'm crazy. I just want you to think about this. They're trying to pin the breakdown of the USPS on President Trump. Why do they want to do that? So they can keep their hands clean when it comes to voting in December in the House for the next president. So they can say, well, it's not our fault that the United States Postal Service was all screwed up. It's President Trump's fault. He's the one who did this and did that. That's a very sketchy plan, and I know you won't stand for it, but they plan on doing it completely legally. So what is our fight? I mean, because this is written in the Constitution. The 12th Amendment says when it fails, when there's not one person who gets a majority of the electoral votes, because it's happened in the past where it's been close like this, who gets the win? And it goes to the House of Representatives. This has already been tested, so we know that that's the next step. But they have to break enough states from having the electoral process work in order to make sure there isn't enough for one person to get a majority. Think about it. Here's having said that, when you think of why am I saying they're blaming President Trump and that, please watch this.
To 30 employees to do that work by hand.
Oh wait, you can't hear that. That's why. You won't be able to hear it because I didn't click the right thing. Hold on one second. See, technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. Technical difficulties. Let's try that one more time. I will get this right. Still trying to make sure things work for us here, folks. All right, so, and click that. There we go. Now you will be able to hear it.
Now, something else to remember. We know the president does not want the United States Postal Service to get $25 billion in funding to expand vote by mail because he says, well, he made it pretty loud and clear why last week.
Now, they need that money in order to have the post office work so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. If they don't get those two items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting because they're not equipped to have it.
Okay, so he doesn't want universal mail-in voting. Why would he not want it? Well, I don't know. He likes polls. Take a look at this one. 70.
So we don't have to look at the polls. We don't have to look at the polls because we can talk now about why they said that. That's a very disingenuous statement. She said she was. I have to say, they took President Trump's words out of context. They make him sound like he doesn't want this voting and that he's sabotaging it. You notice that it sounded completely like President Trump was trying to sabotage it. Well, of course they're going to make it sound like, because that's the plan for in December when they say, well, President Trump is the one who set this up to fail. He destroyed the United States Postal Service when he didn't allow this funding, this $25 billion to go there. And so they put out wrecks of cuts like this, like these chunky cuts to try to embarrass the president and make him look bad. But the actuality is, president didn't say it like that. The way the president said it, and let's see if we can get this on the screen here for you. Yep. Let's see if I can make this happen. Here we go.
Will be, in my opinion, AOC will run against Chuck Schumer for the Senate. Yeah.
So they're just talking about Schumer here. It's a little lead up to it.
Okay.
So here she goes. She starts asking the question.
Does so many bad things. Who knows whether or not she'll get there? Who knows whether or not she'll get there?
In terms of the breakdown in talks on the stimulus. Tell me about that, because that's another thing that they were complaining about you yesterday, saying, well, he's not there negotiating. We want to get something done. The Democrats have put on the table this $3 trillion plan. What specifically are they pushing for that is causing this breakdown in any deals? Nancy Pelosi said that the Democrats want to, and the White House are still miles apart on stimulus.
Well, they're right, and it's their fault. They want $3.5 billion for something that'll turn out to be fraudulent. That's election money, basically. They want $3.5 billion for the mail-in votes. Okay, universal mail-in ballots. $3.5 trillion. They want $25 billion for the post office. Now, they need that money in order to have the post office work so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. Now, in the meantime, they aren't getting there. By the way, those are just two items. But if they don't get those two items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting because they're not equipped to have it. And you see how bad it's been with this Carolyn Maloney scam. She scammed her way into an election. She probably lost, but they said mail-in ballots, it's all mixed up. Patterson, New Jersey, same thing. Yesterday, Virginia, 500,000 applications for ballots got sent to everybody. Nobody knows. Got sent to dogs, got sent to dead people. Nobody has no idea what happened. They said, oh, we made a mistake. I'm sorry. 500,000 ballots sent in Virginia. How do you feel about Virginia going in there and you have 500,000 phony ballot applications? And this is all over.
So this is what's holding it up? They want...
No.
So,
that's
Mr.
only
President,
one aspect
this is what's holding up money.
So you can see the president didn't say it was just. He didn't come out and say, "Oh, I'm going to not do it so we can not have mail-in balloting," like CNN was trying to make you think. I mean, that is the exact interview that they took it from. If you were to go back and rewind my video and look back to the timestamp and where the source material is on the CNN that statement, you will see that it says August 13th on Fox Nation, and it's Maria Border. I'm going to mess up her last name. I'm not going to bother, but Maria's interview of President Trump. So you can hear clearly that the broader context of his statement is. I mean, I know you're not surprised, but I wasn't surprised. I was more angry again at the hypocrisy and the absolute Marxist mentality of these people, where they think they can just get away with this bad cut of the president to make him look evil and he's got some secret plan when they're the ones clearly trying to line things up. And this is what they do. They blame the president of doing exactly what they're doing. They have a secret agenda. They have a plan in place. They are the ones who want to hurt our country by stealing our election. And the process is simple. It's just what I described. You can hear how the president is saying the election, the Democrats are never going to come to the table at this point because the money that is needed for the election would then be able to go to the people into the states, into the USPS, the United States Post Office, and actually be there for like the president is saying it's needed. So, I mean, they're never going to come to the table. Don't ever see them come to the table because even when that money has been put aside, which he didn't get to, but even when that money has been put aside, the Democrats have said, we're not interested in cutting a separate deal. We want a whole package. I'm sure they want a whole package. As long as they say they have a whole package, the American people are suffering. And Maria was about to go into it. So the reason why people haven't been able to get their the next stimulus check, the reason why people haven't been able to get help, the reason why the unemployment is going to be backed up, the reason why all these things that that people need and depend on, the American citizen depends on in order to get through this difficult time, because we're being trapped by our governors. All that they would be able to get is being held up by the Democrats in Congress because they don't want to cut a deal. They don't want to cut a deal because if they cut a deal, then the money would be able to go out. And now the way it is, they can blame it all on Trump. Orange man bad. That's what it comes down to. And then they can steal the election. There's one more piece in the giant theft of the election coming up. So be careful. Watch out. So why is mail-in balloting bad? Because we know, the president mentioned just a couple of instances there. You can fake it real easy. You can fake the ballots, and you can cause confusion within the system. That's the important thing. They don't have to steal the election by putting an extra 10,000 votes in a district. They need to, which they could do with certain areas, you'll find out. But all they need to do is overwhelm the system so much that it can't certify the election as to be legitimate. And then it goes to the House. And then the House votes on it, and you have Joe Biden as president for a month until he steps down because of cognitive issues. And you have Kamala Harris as the first female president, and you'll have whoever's cutting the deal in the background to be the vice president. Maybe Nancy. Who knows? Regardless, what we see is a dismal future if this is allowed to continue. So do yourself a favor, spread this message. I'll be cutting this message up and sending it out up on the site, putting it out on Facebook, and please share it with everyone you know, because it's important for us to get this information out there. It's important for us to let people know the possible dangers. Is this a guarantee? No, it's not. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm willing to admit it. I'm a big enough guy to admit that when I'm wrong, and hopefully I am, because I don't want to see something like this happen. So we're going to move now on to Michelle Obama, because she has shown herself to be such a she's the opening act of the Democrats on last night's DNC. Now I don't know about you. The Democratic National Convention started yesterday. I've known about this for a couple of days, and I said, I should make sure I at least check in. Again, oppositional research, you want to know what your opponent's doing. And so I did. I made sure that I was going to be paying attention to what was going on, because I wanted to make sure I was able to talk to you about it when it came to going over it. And I have to say, I just missed it. I missed the entire thing.
Those who know they cannot win.
Here we go. I missed it completely, and I just watched it a little bit of it last night, and I watched a little bit of it today. And I made sure to watch Michelle Obama's speech today, because last night I saw a number of pundits talking about how wonderful she is as a speaker and how she would be great in politics and how she's this and that. I really didn't find her speech compelling. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the fact that I find her message in general unappealing. Like I'm not a Democrat. I'm not interested in hearing what the Democrat says, and not because I'm closed-minded, but because I already know it. I've done my research. I don't need somebody to lie to me and tell me Orange Man bad. I don't need someone to sit there and go over and over again about how he's done this wrong, he's failed at this. And I don't need to hear that because I already know it's a pack of lies. Just from what I've shown you before, that's only one taste of the pack of lies that we will be seeing over the next coming months. Why? Because Orange Man bad. We got to get rid of him. It comes down to the same thing. They despise Trump, and we know that. So without belaboring the point, this is Michelle Obama eloquently speaking about how we need to come together, despite the fact that her husband, the most divisive president in the history of the United States, with the probably the exception of Abraham Lincoln, not because of him, but because of his opponents. And again, President Trump is supposedly the bad guy in this, but yet her husband, the ex-President Obama, is the guy who has really caused so much turbulence in our country. And I'll be willing to back that up. Anybody who wants to debate me, any of the topics I've talked about, I'll be glad to debate you. I'll be glad to put you in your place and tell you you're wrong and explain to you why you're wrong. I have no problem doing that, and maybe I'll even give you some time on my show. Probably not, though. Maybe I will. But let's go back and look at Michelle Obama. I can't give her 3 minutes and 50 seconds, like the length of the video. I tell you, I struggled to stay awake during her when I was watching her speech. So maybe you will too.
Fair and square at the ballot box are doing everything they can to stop us from voting. They're closing down polling places in minority neighborhoods. They're purging voter rolls. They're sending people out to intimidate voters, and they're lying about the security of our ballots. These tactics are not new, but this is not the time to withhold our votes in protest or play games with candidates who have no chance of winning. We have got to vote like we did in 2008 and 2012. We've got to show up with the same level of passion and hope for Joe Biden. We've got to vote early, in person if we can. We've got to request our mail-in ballots right now, tonight, and send them back immediately. And follow up to make sure they're received. And then make sure our friends and families do the same. We have got to grab our comfortable shoes, put on our masks, pack a brown bag dinner, and maybe breakfast too, because we've got to be willing to stand in line all night if we have to. Look, we have already sacrificed so much this year. So many of you are already going that extra mile. Even when you're exhausted, you're mustering up unimaginable courage to put on those scrubs and give our loved ones a fighting chance. Even when you're anxious, you're delivering those packages, stocking those shelves, and doing all that essential work so that all of us can keep moving forward. Even when it all feels so overwhelming, working parents are somehow piecing it all together without childcare. Teachers are getting creative so that our kids can still learn and grow. Our young people are desperately fighting to pursue their dreams. And when the horrors of systemic racism shook our country and our consciences, millions of Americans of every age, every background rose up to march for each other, crying out for justice and progress. This is who we still are. Compassionate, resilient, decent people whose fortunes are bound up with one another. And it is well past time for our leaders to once again reflect our truth. So it is up to us to add our voices and our votes to the chorus of history, echoing heroes like John Lewis, who said, "When you see something that is not right, you must say something. You must do something."
Okay, so here, let me bring myself back onto camera. Very interesting that she should say that about that John Lewis. comment that she just mentioned. That's why I'm here too. I mean, I see something very wrong. One of the things that I found particularly disturbing, and I mentioned I didn't like it, but I want to make it clear. One of the reasons why I didn't like it is because I felt it was very disingenuous. One of the comments that I saw from, I think it was Jesse Lee Peterson. I watched Uncle Tom over the weekend, and I made sure I took notes. Unfortunately, I didn't bring them with me, but the thing that I want to make sure I tell you about is, I think it was Jesse Lee Peterson who said that there was a big push from the NAACP, from Jesse Jackson and Reverend Al Sharpton and people like that who were saying and how bad they're being oppressed, how bad black people are being oppressed. And then he looked at what was going on with, Jesse Jackson's kids, how they seem to be able to go to the best schools, how they never struggled. Their families were complete. They had a nuclear family. They had basically everything that Jesse Lee said he didn't have. And he realized, he said to himself, why are these leadership people in the black community doing fine and the rest of us aren't? And he realized at that point that he was being lied to. And from that point forward, he was done with them. And I can't help but feel that this is the kind of same message that Michelle Obama is talking about here. This is the same message, because let's be honest, her kids didn't have any problems finding a school. All the kids that are, in Newark, or many of the kids in Newark, and many of the kids in the inner city throughout the country who are stuck in public schools and can't get out of them because they don't have the Democrats won't allow them to have a voucher system so that they could go to better schools. They could go to Catholic schools or Jewish schools or any school that would be willing to take the voucher. And that would be pretty much all of them. So then the parents and the child would have a decision in who would provide the education. Nowadays, they're locked into a system, a stagnant system that's destroying them, destroying their culture, destroying their communities. And you can see it just by walking down in the streets today. And this isn't something that's coming from me. This is, again, information I got from Uncle Tom, but I also know this information from my own research. Beside that, vouchers work, charter schools work, and these Democrats, like Michelle Obama, are patently against it. They are not pushing for it. Kids are struggling. And for her to sit there and say the families are struggling, and then you heard a few minutes ago how President Trump was willing to work with the Democrats to try to get bills passed to help these families. The Democrats are doing nothing. Where's her influence on that? They have no problem influencing something like Black Lives Matter or the destruction in our city to go around and call it peaceful protesting, despite the blood, despite the flames, despite all the destruction being done, the people's businesses and the towns. Despite all of that, they're still calling it peaceful protest. She has no problem supporting that. Her and her husband. They have no problem promoting that. Yet they won't raise one finger to really help those families who are struggling in the inner city to get their education, to get the Democrats who run the cities to turn them around and start having good policies where the police are protecting the poorest of us, and they're not, they're not out there protesting fake with this nonsense and destroying things like the nuclear family. I mean, I could go on and on, but it's just disingenuous. For her to talk about supporting these children and then supporting a movement that wants to destroy the nuclear family, which, I mean, if you want to watch something, watch Uncle Tom, because it makes it clear how the Democrats have destroyed the nuclear family. One of the other quotes, I can't remember the person, but it's from the movie, says, welfare system is slavery 2.0. Well, here's, you can go find the proof, go look it up yourself if you don't believe me. Got a problem with what I said? Come talk to me about it. I'll be glad to tell you why you're wrong. All right, so having said that, let's move on to the final piece. We've been going at this for, I'm a little bit over time. I didn't expect to be doing this long. But I want to get back to the last thing. I want to close out with who actually votes for President Trump. Because this is one of those things that we see we see from so many people. Like after 2016, we saw this is ridiculous. Who's the type of people who will be voting for President Trump because they go on, orange man, bad racist, he's this, he's that. They like to completely try to mock him as a candidate and go after him in so many different ways. And I found this last night as I happened to be watching TV. As I was watching TV, I saw this, and I got to thinking, this is exactly how these people think about you and me. You Trump supporters out there, you people are going to vote for Trump. I want you to listen to this guy. His name, I think it's Henry Intent or something like that. This is the guy on the bottom. Of course, there's Fredo on top of the image with his eyes closed there. No, I didn't do that on purpose. It was unintentional. It just happened to stop like that. So I want to make sure preface this with this is they're talking about the post first night of the DNC convention, and they're kind of doing like a breakdown of the numbers.
Specifics of the polls and different demographic groups. Why is it as close as it is right now?
I think there are a few reasons why it's as close as it is. Number one, you have this fight within white voters, right, between those with a college degree and those without a college degree. Those with a college degree overwhelmingly for Biden, those without overwhelmingly for Trump, although perhaps by not the same margin as they were 4 years ago. And the other thing that I think is important to point out is that non-white voters, specifically African Americans, while they're giving Biden a substantial margin at this point, it's not the same margin that Hillary Clinton was earning 4 years ago. And I think that's going to be something to watch as the convention sort of unfolds, whether or not Biden tries to bring back these traditionally Democratic voters. But the other thing I'll note, just Chris, is Joe Biden's in a much better position than Hillary Clinton was 4 years ago at this point, right? He is still way out ahead, 9 points versus she was only up by 4. And more than that, he's over 50%. So he's in a much better shape than, say, Clinton was 4 years ago.
But what's up with the minority vote? Why would they be for Trump?
Here it is.
I think that there are a few things, not the least of which is that non-white voters overall tend to be lower educated as a percentage. And that, of course, is playing a big role in our politics right now, as education's a big deal. And more than that, younger black voters who were so strongly for Barack Obama in 2012, specifically younger black male voters, are not necessarily on board with Biden at this particular point. And you saw that throughout the primary, right, where Biden was running up these huge margins among older African Americans, while actually Bernie Sanders was winning those under the age of 30.
Strong point. Pre-convention margins. Do we have that to put in? This is the context.
All right, so I don't know if you heard it, but let me break it down for you. What this guy was explaining was simple, straightforward, and it comes down to you're just too dumb. That's it. I can break. I don't have to go long-winded. I guess I can add to that. Not only are you too dumb because you're uneducated, because of course, the more educated elites, the more educated people vote for someone like Biden, a guy who can't string 2 or 3 sentences together without having somebody pat him on the back and say, do it again. This is what we're looking at. We have a group of people who look at you and look at me as if we're just dumb, idiot hicks. In other words, they haven't changed their way of thinking about you and me since 2016. We're just too dumb. Worse yet, they've now grouped all those black people who are supporting President Trump. They're just dumb. They're just, of course, black people are. This is what he said. Black people are generally less educated anyway than obviously him, the super genius who came up with this. This is such. I mean, it is such blatant racism right off the bat. I mean, we can't say this is racism. I mean, what? Because they're black, they're stupid. They can't think. They can't see when somebody tells a lie. That's as dumb as when they say the minorities can't figure out how to get an ID to go vote, but yet they can get an ID to buy alcohol, to buy cigarettes, to buy a gun, to go get their car registered, and a whole list of other things in order to walk into a building, a government building in some places, you have to show ID. In order to go to court, you have to show ID. And these people, you get pulled over by a cop, you're supposed to show ID. And you can have ID for all that, but the minorities are too dumb to have one to go vote. That's the same kind of stupidity. It's just like the same kind of stupidity is why are we doing mail-in voting when we go to the ShopRite, we can go to the Walmart, we can go to the Piggly Wiggly, we can go to wherever. We can go to Wegum's, and we can go to all of them and stand in line. Go to DMV in New Jersey. See it for weeks. Lines packed, hours and hours. People are on lines to go to the DMV. I don't mean the car. They're lined up one-to-one to go inside to get their registration, to get their license renewed, whatever it may be, to get their ID. They can do that, but they can't line up to vote. Why don't you make it 3 days of voting? Why don't you do 3 days of voting instead of one? If you're so concerned about it, open up the polls longer. Do it electronically, the way we've done it for the last few years up here where I live. I mean, do it. Just have the polls open for 3 days instead of having people having to smash into 1 day. If you're so concerned about it, stop doing the mail-in balloting where we can destroy and overwhelm the system. Have people show up with an ID. It's the same stupidity. Oh, you must be too dumb because you're going to vote for Trump. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I just solved the problem for the mail-in. You don't have to do mail-in voting. Just have 3 days of voting, because the problem with the mail-in system is there's too many old machines out there that they're going to have to use to count the system. Machines dating back to the 90s. That's what they have to go back to when they did mail-in voting back then. In large sections of the country, that's what they're going to have to go back to. The mail-in voting of 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Why? Because the Democrats are the ones who want to wreck the system. And they want Biden in there. And this is the best way they got, because they know Biden is a bad candidate. So there is a way we can overcome this. I didn't mention it before because I want to wait to the end. This is the way that we can beat the Democrats in November, no matter the shenanigans they pull. We have to overwhelmingly win as many states as we can. I'm talking an 1984 size landslide where Mondale only got 13 electoral votes out of 538. 13. If you get that, there's no way that they're going to be able to stop President Trump. There's no way they can say it's not done. He will then have clearly a majority because they just can't do it. They can't get enough states between now and then to do it. Hopefully, maybe they can. They do have a lot of money. They got Soros money. They got all the Weinstein money sitting in the bank. They got Epstein's money sitting in the bank. They got plenty of money to play with, and you and I don't. This is why I'm gonna, doing most of this work myself, and my team is me and three. So God bless you. That's enough for tonight. Make sure you share this. You're watching this later. Share it before you go any further. Make sure you tell your friends. Get them out there to vote. God loves you. President Trump loves you. Because I got to tell you, he's endured a lot of pain and suffering to stay up there and to keep on fighting. Take care of yourselves. We're going to do this again, probably Thursday night. We're going to do Tuesday, Thursday shows. And don't forget, Sunday night, 9:15, we do our wrap-up and our predictions for the coming week when we talk about all the things that we can. Sunday night here on this channel. God bless you. Take care. Oh, we're going to find the... There we go. God bless.
Rise and shine! I got hairy legs.
Sometimes the words don't come out of your mouth the right way.
They know. They know. And they know I know.
There comes a time in every friendship when you have to say, I never liked you, get lost.
Thanks for the advice.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Me, I always tell the truth. Even when I lie.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent.
Here we go. First thing is I want to see us export more jobs.
And the way you treat other people are horrible.
It's the fly in the ointment, Hans. The monkey in the wrench. The pain in the ass.
If I were the man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place!
You kidding me?
Let's have an equipment check. Weapon? Well, let's keep it simple. You got your boots on, you can walk into combat. Let's go.
He won't sell anybody out to buy his future.
Say what?
I show you how to order.
All of you relax. This is a matter of inconvenient timing, that's all.